All right. Hello, class. So I'm going to continue the lesson with composite effects. Now, one thing to consider is in terms all of this is at least understanding the term composite effects. It's just when you put one element on top of another element or combining multiple layered elements. So similar to what we see in Photoshop. That's really all it is. What we did last time was a mask effect. We're going to do an ultra key now. Or if we didn't, well, now we're just doing an ultra key. So the way the unique properties regarding for an ultra key are that you don't have to mask anything, any part of the video or the image. You just have to make sure that you plan ahead, and in your planning, you decide to film or you collaborate with your director, DP, whatever, and you plan ahead, or your art director really, and you decide what parts of your set or your background that you want maybe to either to be replaced by another image of your choice or another video of your choice. So like for special effects films, it's usually a background where we can see like flying cars or whatnot. So, or even anything that looks kind of science fiction. I mean, that was pretty much what all of the Star Wars prequels were. If you want to get an idea of what that might look like, that's, most science fiction films utilize lots of that. Or even if you have, say, same thing, maybe the same genre or something similar, and or you're on a spaceship, or or even on a phone, and you want to replace the contents of the phone later, um, then you do the same kind of effect, or green screen effect, where the screen on the phone itself is a certain color, and what's going to happen is you're going to tell the editing software via an eyedropper to change to make that color invisible and to allow whatever's underneath to shine through, to come through. Now, if this is a handheld shot, keep in mind that you will have to utilize some of the techniques, or something like the techniques that we did before with the mask effect, or if you've learned that before in a keyframing animation effect, where you have to go either a little bit at a time and adjust your images so that it fits within the image space, because if you don't, then your person holding the device, either their phone or their computer, whatever's in the background, will look unnatural, especially if they move that device. And we all know, holding a phone, I mean, people are holding it, so it's always kind of always moving. So you will also have to map that movement. After Effects is pretty good at doing that, and of course, even Premiere, you can do that. It does take time, and like I said, really, it's all about planning ahead. So maybe even to save yourself a little headache, what you could do is decide that whatever is going to be green screened is a static image, which means it doesn't have any movement, and or it's in the background, so it can have all the movement you want, and it won't really affect it too much. Again, that's just part of the planning ahead. So what I'm going to do in this demo is just kind of do a generic one. I'm just going to put, I have images of a dog, and then I have just a flying background, but I'm just going to show you the technique right now more than anything else. It'll be up to you in your assignment to show your creativity and decide how you want to fully exploit all the techniques that we've been learning. And you can tell me about that in the artist statement so that I know to look for it. So let's go ahead and get started on the demo. Now for this particular demo, I've already downloaded some images. I've already created the file or the project, so it's ready to go. So here we are in Premiere, and I already have a bin called video. I have a couple of videos already, so I'll double click, show you the first one. The first one is this funny little dog, and it's kind of squashed. And then I also have a kind of a background, like a flying space background kind of situation. And it's kind of designed so that you can remove the middle in a way, and maybe key out the middle, and you can put like a face in there, a little dog face in there. So there are two things. So there are even two approaches to this. Even though we call this typically green screen, I mean, you can use any color you want. And if you want to know why, like, well, why is it green? Why is it green screen? Well, it's because that color green that is used is typically not, it's not found in nature, really. That's what it is. And it's usually not a color that is, not worn. People don't really wear that color. If you notice when you watch Star Wars, no one really has a very, very bright green, lightsaber, so it doesn't get eliminated. And if there are lightsabers, well, they probably created layers of mask effects and then locked down the images so they wouldn't get erased when they composited all the effects together. So they had many, many tips. They did utilize their own techniques to preserve the integrity of their images. All right, so let's start off with creating an image, and not only that, but what would be fun about this project too is if we look at the dimensions. Let's see, let's open that up so you can see here under video info. You'll see that this video, the background is 1080, but this image here can be considered 4K, little dog. So we're going to composite a 4K image on top of a 1080 image. Now, what I want to do is show you how you can utilize a 4K image on a 1080 sequence so that you can fully exploit the resolution of 4K. Now, the way to exploit that resolution is to shoot your footage in 4K, but when you bring it into your project, you're going to create a sequence that's not 4K, but that is actually 1080, regular old HD. So that when you bring your image in, it's going to be bigger than the sequence image, which means you can zoom in on content, make it, scale it larger, and you won't lose any resolution. So that is the advantage of that technique. And then you can still deliver a 1080 project, which is perfectly fine for Blu-ray, right? So lots of really cool techniques that come out of this. So let's get started. So what I'm going to start with is load up in my source the image. I'm going to drag it over to the new, and we're going to create a new sequence. There we go. And there's my video. So there's my sequence. So I'm going to call this guy, let's call this Composite Flying Dog, because that's going to be the sequence. So let's make this bigger so you can see, you guys can, oh, you got to be careful about this stuff because you might lose the image. So that's flying space. I know how to type, right? Jeez. All right, flying space. Let's just call this one Doggy, so we know what all our content is. Just nicer to be organized. Let's go ahead and make this full screen so you can see what I'm working on here. And I'm going to change this from icon view to list view because I like to look at all my content here. And what I'm also going to do is going to make a new bin. We're going to call this sequences, because we're going to, I'm going to show you how to do a couple of, how to make a nested sequence automatically. So I'm going to move Flying Dog in there. Here we go. All right. Let's make that smaller. Okay, so we have first space. Now this is, if we want to see how long this, remember, we just look to the right here of our source. That's the full length of our image, of our media. So 0 frames, 50 seconds. So just under a minute. If we look at Doggy is very short. It's not even 8 seconds long. No big deal. Again, this is just a demo. So I'm just going to drag and drop all of Doggy over here and put him on layer 2. And as you see when I play it, especially when I get to the end, it's going to cut off and then it's going to disappear. And like right now, see, one thing I want you all to notice is the fact that the image is bigger, right? If you look at the program versus the source, here's the entire thing. This is what it should look like. It's a dog sitting on a stool, but I'm only seeing his face, right? Now here's what's cool about it. If I select the image here, or let me see, go to effect control and tap motion. See, I get the bounding box. At this point I can drag and I can move him around, look. And as you can see, I just want to prove to you guys that there he is. He's all there completely. He's sitting on his stool. Let's make this bigger so we can get a full sense of it. And even fit, let's make this about, let's go 50%. So here, look at the size of the image. It's all of that, see, versus the sequence setting, which is this right here. So this is 1080. This bounding box all the way around is showing us the 4K. So, and I also want to show you how, if I go to motion, open that up, here's my scale. I just want to show you I can make it smaller, but I can make it bigger. Look, again, because it's 1080, I'm going to see very little loss in resolution. So let's do that right now. Let's make him, let's put his face almost all the way, so it'll be kind of fun. Well, actually, no. Let's make him smaller, because even if I put him at 100%, it's still going to be big. So let's put the number 100 in there. Then I move him over. Here we go. So this is where it was. Because I really, when I put the effect, I want, we want to see the background. And not only that, but we also want to um, uh, um, talk about some of the techniques we can do. So I'm going to actually make it a little smaller. Let's make this guy smaller so we can see kind of what it would look like completely. All right, now let's do fit. Boom. So that'll be enough. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to apply the key technique. We're going to get rid of the green, and then as this video plays, it's just going to be nothing but the background. Okay, so I'll stop that real quick. Let's do that. All right. Now remember, your resolution or your performance may vary, especially if you're working on such high resolutions. Remember, you can create a proxy. I skipped that because, again, it's just the demo. You can also change your resolution here. So I'm going to go down to a quarter, actually, because that's just going to make it a little easier. But mine plays relatively smoothly because I'm finally able to do all my demos on a newer MacBook, so got a pretty beefy machine now. Okay, let's go to the beginning. All right. So what we have to do is going to go up here to effects. Sorry, not over here. I mean down here in our project pane. Let's click the double arrow and let's find effects. And what we're going to do, and just to show you, see, that's what you do. You go to the search, and we're going to type in the word ultra. And if we look down at our disclosure triangles, we'll see that ultra key is under video effects, under keying, and under ultra key. I'm going to show you also the other effects that you can find. I mean, there's a ton of these effects you can add. And really the name of the game at this point is find the ones you want, add them to your videos, and then change their parameters up here in the effects control. That's really how you learn this stuff. So here's ultra key. And so we have image mat key, luma key. We have all kinds of keys that offer different types of compositing control. Ultra key is fairly new. That's why we're using this one. But also because it handles the green screen technology very, very well. Okay. So we got the key going here. And because we're already in effects controls, let's close out motion. Here's the ultra key. So here's exactly what we added. Now, if you're saying, well, we added it, how come there's nothing there? Well, if we look at your key color, which this is indicating which color is going to be used to be erased and replaced, it's currently black. And there's black maybe on this face. So you might be able to see in some of the images. See, I think you can see through some of this stuff, or maybe even down here on that black. But since it's not a pure black, this is kind of like a matte gray, and this is like an animal black. So the black might not match. But either way, doesn't matter. What we're going to do is we're going to get our eyedropper, right? Let's turn this guy on, and boom, there's our green. And the moment I hit green, there it is. I'm starting to get key, and let's do a in and out point, and let's turn on the looper and push play so you guys can see that. There we go. So this is what it looks like now. And let's see if my computer can handle it. I'm going to try and play this stuff back and then do some of these effects so we can see, so you can see it live. Now the next thing is we're going to, after we've applied our composite, this is going to be true in most cases, you have matte generation, matte cleanup, spill suppression, color correction. You have these tools here now to help fix the matte and make it look as clean as possible, okay? Because right now it's not completely clean. So to start with, it's easiest to go over here to composite and switch this to alpha channel, because the alpha channel removes any kind of potentially confusing images, so that we just focus on the elements that we want to keep and want to remove. So the name of the game here is everything we want to keep should be white. Anything we want to remove will be in black. Okay, so keep the whites, remove the black. That's the name. So even though you're saying, well, this is kind of gray, it's like exactly, but this is part of the green screen that we want to remove. And we have several techniques to do so. So we can start with matte generation. And oh, and before we do that, actually, when you go to setting, you actually have two major settings that you can use to apply your ultra key, and sometimes that's all you need to do. So let's do relaxed. See, and if I do relaxed, it means it's lighter. Notice there was a lot more. Let's go back to default. Here's where it was. So it's kind of in the middle. But now let's do aggressive. Boom. Look at that. Aggressive took out almost all of it, and it left just a little bit on the bottom. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So we can actually leave it there. But again, if you can also just use the default here as a way to, again, testing. So, or just go to custom. And if you go to custom, this is gonna, use settings that might be there, or it might already been set, might have been played with. That's what it might be doing on mine. It might already be pulling settings that I had done before, but I'll just leave it on. Let's go on default, and then this way I can, I'll manipulate some more. So let's start with matte generation. This lets us focus on the crisp whites and blacks in the internal parts of the key. So you have the crispness on either side. I think some of the advice I've received is you really want to go after the shadow. So right now it's at 50%. So if I go in here and I change them, just to show you, see, I'm lessening that shadow. I went all the way down to 0. Look at that. I killed a lot of it. But look at the eyeball. I'm starting to get remove a little bit from the animal. So I don't want to remove too much. Maybe to 40. That's pretty good. And I think the highlights might be, I don't think that's going to really give us anything interesting. And if you do your setting change and you don't like it and you forget, like, oh, I forgot what the number was, remember, you can always just do Command Z to undo it, and it'll go back to the default, or hit this button right here. Let's get transparency. See, if I go up, it's bringing the dog. I don't want that. And I don't want to go too much to the left. So again, it's kind of like the audio, right? If you notice, because it's a balancing act of taking some away, but not too much, because you don't want to remove too much away from your main. So I'm going to actually reset this one because I don't want that. And pedestal, let's look at pedestal. Pedestal is actually a good one to manipulate. There we go. It doesn't take away too much from our image. And see, that kind of did pretty good there. Let's see if I can bring some of little doggy back in shadows. It's not bad right there at all. So I might just leave that alone. So I think with our matte generation, that's a pretty good matte generator. We can use our matte cleanup and spell suppression for the rest. So now if you happen to have little step patterns, because sometimes you do see those, matte cleanup is really good to clean up or to smooth out your edges. So soften works good. See, and go back and forth. Let's reset that. I don't know if it did really much, but that's pretty good. I'll leave it at 56. And contrast. I know contrast is a good one. And there we go. Actually, that kind of removes almost the rest of it. And I'm not going to just go all the way to 100, but I want to go right to the point where it kind of disappears completely. Yeah, it leaves it at 74. Because if I remove more than necessary, remember, you're just pulling information away from your image, and it's going to slowly degrade your image. Let's close that up. And then we also have spill suppression. This helps to remove any matching colors that are, like some of the green. It'll kind of help fix some of the green or the blue, whatever, in terms of your matte color or your key color, and so that it separates it between the background and your actual image. Spill's a good one to you can use to clean up a little bit, to get rid of some stuff. I really didn't see a whole lot there. Let's go to range. Could be my imagination, but I thought it did something. We can do desaturate. I can really see a lot happening here. Luma. I don't think I see a whole lot, so let's put that back. All right. But the image is looking pretty good here in terms of our black and white already. So let's put this back to composite. Let's see. Ooh, look what we've done. We can't even see our image. This is why it's a good idea to kind of go back and forth. So let's go back to our choke and our contrast. Let's reset some of these guys completely. And even the same thing with matte generator. Let's see what it looks like now. Yeah, because it's kind of going nuts here in terms of, see, this was 63. Let's see if I can go back to composite. Green. Let's go back to custom. All right. I think actually what was going on is if you notice that color was kind of weird, it's because the color channel was somehow getting confused with it. So I think we're actually looking pretty good. It's just a matter of some of the again the spillover, but let's just put it pedestal because pedestal is always a good one. Let's see, channel. I don't really see a lot. If I push play, we see that I did take a little bit away from the dog. So you put, let's see. Let's take a look at it now. Alpha channel. There we go. That's a little better. And that was from the highlight, I believe. Maybe not. Let's put that back. Image tolerance. Put that back to where it was. Or shadows. Yeah, it was shadow. There we go. Let's put that back here. So it was really pedestal that did it for us. Let's look back at our composite. Let's push play. That's pretty good. We can kind of see, I think, some edges here. So let's see if we can clean that up a little bit more. In spill suppression. Let's get the alpha channel. I think there's still a little bit. Or actually, let's go to matte cleanups. That's what we want to do. We want to clean that up a little bit. Contrast. There we go. Pull that away with contrast. Now let's take a look. There we go. Go into contrast, did it. And now it's a nice clean little image. Not bad. Let's play this guy full. And let's go full screen so we can see what he looks like. Oh, let's go. Look at that. Not a bad image, huh? Looks pretty good, nice and clean. Now, sometimes it's hard to get rid of the little lines around the edges like this. I mean, you really have to attack that. And if it becomes a problem, I mean, like for us, we're like, well, we don't want to see that anyways. Remember, since we got a doggy, we can manipulate however we want. Now, I did have this earlier where I wasn't using that, but let's select dog. Because I'm going to show you again how I can manipulate the scale. Let's make him bigger. And you know, like, well, I want to move the dog. So if you want to get the parameters around him so you can manipulate him over here, then just click the word motion and that'll give you the outline, and then you can drag the dog and put him wherever you want. See, there we go. Select doggy again. So let's put dog over here, just to kind of show his little eyeballs, kind of cute. Maybe we put him, yeah, it's kind of funny. Little doggy eyes. Huh, what's going on? So there you go. Now, in terms of some of the other techniques, one thing I did want to show you too is not only can we do all this stuff, but if I wanted to, let's say I have the, I'm going to highlight this, you know, again, I'm going to include this as a special effect somewhere. So I can right click and I have two options. I have my nest and I have my make subsequence. The difference between the two is that if I do make subsequence, all it does is create another sequence and with the same name that as before. So it's kind of like just making another sequence. what's cool about it, and I'll show you. Let's make a sequence. Here we go. See, and there it is, composite flying dog as a subsequence. Now it's like a backup. So there it is. See, it's the same. Now I can manipulate it. I can make my own changes to it because it is its own thing. So let's make this a little bigger just to show it to you. Let's show you the sky full screen. There's doggy. Ta-da. All right. Now this one doesn't have the in and out yet, so I'd have to recreate that. And so that's really it. Now, if I wanted to, I can, let's see, let's open it up. I can drag this up here and just say, leave it. So it's part of my sequences. It's just like composite flying dog. It's the same. Let me show you the difference between that and creating a nest. So if I do this instead, and I do nest instead of subsequence, it gives me the name. So I'm going to call that nested sequence one, excuse me, and then I do OK. And it creates another sequence out here. But if you notice this time, it puts it inside of the existence sequence you were working on. So it still has the name composite flying dog, but it's now just green. And if I push play, see, there it is. It's still the same dog. You're like, well, how do I manipulate it? Well, what I do is I double click and there it is. Then I can get into it. And if you notice what's happening is I'm now looking at nested sequence one, which is out here. So I can make changes to this and it'll apply to whatever is going on here in my composite flying dog. So what you can do, and this is where I've seen this be incredibly helpful to me, is sometimes, you start working on a show or some kind of project, you start doing effects and you realize that, oh, this is my main sequence. Actually, you really should have made it into a nested sequence, my special effects, so then I can manipulate it, because you might have like your interviews over here, your titles over here, and you're like, oh, I should have really made that into a sequence. Well, if you do nested sequence, then it will do that. It will just collect everything, all your content, make it into a sequence, and then pop it into the existing sequence, which is in this case composite flying dog. But if I double click it, it'll open it up and I can make my changes and do whatever I want. So if I go back in here and say I make the dog huge, if I go back to composite flying dog, guess what? Dog is huge. So once you make the changes in your nested sequence, they'll apply in your main sequence. So really cool technique. What I like about it is if you use other software, like you find this also in Avid, Final Cut Pro 10 has a version of this. It's a little bit different because what Final Cut Pro 10 now does is something called a compound clip, which is a collection of clips that, again, when you double click them, they open up and you can create adjustments. And if they're on the main storyline, which is like a timeline in Final Cut Pro, then the updates will be there. So again, these are really helpful when you create your projects. Think of them. The way I like to think of this is like when we're building projects out in Final Cut Pro, I mean in Premiere, excuse me, in Adobe Premiere. I said Final Cut Pro because this is literally word for word the lecture that I used to do when I used to teach Final Cut Pro 7. It's the same idea in that think of each section of your show then as a small piece. It's a small part. So it's kind of like a Lego, right? If any of you have ever worked with a Lego or some sort of construction toy, then you know that typically the way you build those is in small sections, right? You get the instructions, it shows you build this one part. And once you build that part, it tells you put that away. Now, let's start a new section. You build another part. Okay, and then you finish, you put that away. And you build all the parts in these sort of shorter 10 to 15 step increments, because it becomes helpful, especially when you're working on a larger project, because it knows you're going to be there, a while. It's not something you can necessarily build quickly. So the more complicated projects are created this way in small sections. And then once you've created all the small modular parts, then you put them all together on top of a base, usually. I usually like to draw a picture of on the board, I draw a picture of like you build a cockpit, then you build a hook, and then you build a base with wheels, and then you put the cockpit and the hook, and then you're like, oh, it's like a little, construction tractor of some kind. You kind of, once you put it together, you see it. but you can't see the entire thing until you build the smaller parts. And when you're building the smaller parts, they may not resemble the bigger thing yet, again, because it's not fully completed. It's only at the very end when you put it all together can you see it. You know, it's kind of like if any of you watched the show Voltron, you know, all the animals and the beasts come together to create a giant, large transformer-like robot. So it's kind of like that. Um, so hope you enjoyed the demo and learned now at least how to create an ultra key effect and how to use the tools to clean up your image, and then also how to work with nested images and nested sequences. So uh, if you have any questions, as always, send me an email. And that's it. Hope you have a productive week. Take care, everyone.